Judges 7, Gideon surprises and routs the Midianites. Then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the spring of Harod, and the camp of Midian was north of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. The Lord said to Gideon, "The people with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hand, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, My own hand has delivered me. Now therefore proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, Whoever is fearful and trembling, let him return home." And Gideon tested them. 22,000 returned, and 10,000 remained. And the Lord said to Gideon, "The people are still too many. Take them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. And he of whom I say to you, This man shall go with you, shall go with you. And any of whom I say to you, This man shall not go with you, shall not go." So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, "Everyone that laps the water with his tongue as a dog laps, you shall set by himself. Likewise, everyone that kneels down to drink." And the number of those that lapped, putting their hands to their mouth, was 300 men. But all the rest of the people knelt down to drink water. And the Lord said to Gideon, "With the 300 men that lapped, I will deliver you, and give the Midianites into your hand, and let all the others go, every man to his home." So he took the jars of the people from their hands and their trumpets, and he sent all the rest of Israel, every man to his tent, but retained the 300 men, and the camp of Midian was below him in the valley. That same night the Lord said to him, "Arise, go down against the camp, for I have given it into your hand. But if you fear to go down to the camp with Purah your servant, and you shall hear what they say. And afterwards your hand shall be strengthened to go down against the camp." Then he went down with Purah his servant, the outpost of the armed men that were in the camp. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the people of the east lay along the valley like locusts for multitude, and their camels were without number, as the sand which is upon the seashore for multitude. When Gideon came, behold, a man was telling a dream to his comrade. And he said, "Behold, I dreamed a dream, and lo, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian, and came to the tent, and struck it so that it fell, and turned it upside down, so that the tent lay flat." And his comrade answered, "This is no other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. Into his hand God has given Midian and all the host." When Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, he worshipped, and he returned to the camp of Israel and said, "Arise, for the Lord has given the host of Midian into your hand." And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies, and put trumpets into the hands of all of them, and empty jars with torches inside the jars. And he said to them, "Look at me and do likewise. When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then blow the trumpets also on every side of all the camp, and shout for the Lord and for Gideon." So Gideon and 100 men who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, when they had just set the watch, and they blew the trumpets and smashed the jars that were in their hands. And the 3 companies blew their trumpets and broke the jars, holding in their left hand the torches, and in their right hands the trumpets to blow. And they cried, "A song for the Lord and for Gideon." They stood every man in his place round about the camp, and all the army ran. They cried out and fled. When they blew the 300 trumpets, the Lord set every man fought against his fellow and against all the army. And the army fled as far as Bethshita towards Zerera, as far as the border of Abel-Meholah by Tabath. And the men of Israel were called out from Naphtali and from Asher and from all Manasseh, and they pursued after Midian. And Gideon sent messengers throughout all the hill country of Ephraim, saying, "Come down against the Midianites and seize the waters against them, as far as Bethbarah, and also of Jordan." So all the men of Ephraim were called out, and they seized the waters as far as Bethbarah and also the Jordan. And they took the 2 princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeb they killed at the wine press of Zeb. And they pursued Midian, and they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon beyond the Jordan. Judges 8. Gideon's triumph and vengeance. And the men of Ephraim said to him, "What is that you have done to us, not to call us when you went to fight with Midian?" And they upbraided him violently. And he said to them, "What have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God has given into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. What have I been able to do in comparison with you?" Then their anger against him abated when he had said this. And Gideon came to the Jordan and passed over, he and the 300 men who were with him, faint yet pursuing. So he said to the men of Succoth, "Pray, give loaves of bread to the people who follow me, for they are faint. And I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, the king of Midian." And the people of Succoth said, "Are Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, that we should give bread to your army?" And Gideon said, "Well then, when the Lord has given Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will flay your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars." And from there he went up to Peniel and spoke to them in the same way. And the men of Peniel answered him as the men of Sukkot and had answered. And he said to the men of Peniel, when I come again in peace, I will break down this tower. Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor with the army, about 15,000 men, all who were left of all the army of the people of the east, for they had fallen 120,000 men who drew the sword. And Gideon went up by the caravan route east of Nobah and Jogbehah and attacked the army, for the army was off its guard. And Zebah and Zalmunna fled, and he pursued them and took the 2 kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and he threw all the army into panic. Then Gideon, the son of Joash, returned from the battle by the ascent of hills, and he caught a young man of Sukkot and questioned him, and he wrote down for him the officials and elders of Sukkot, 77 men. And he came to the men of Sukkot and said, behold, Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you taunted me, saying, are Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, that we should give bread to your men who are faint? And he took the elders of the city, and he took thorns of the wilderness and briars, and with them taught the men of Sukkot. And he broke down the tower of Peniel, and slew the men of the city. Then he said to Zebah and Zalmunna, where are the men whom you slew at Tabor? They answered, as you are, so were they. Every one of them, they resembled the sons of a king. And he said, they were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As the Lord lives, if you had saved them alive, I would not slay you. And he said to Jether, his firstborn, rise and slay them. But the youth did not draw his sword, for he was afraid, because he was still a youth. Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, rise yourself and fall upon us, for as a man is, so is his strength. And Gideon arose and slew Zebah and Zalmunna, and he took the crescents that were on the necks of their camels. Gideon's idolatry. Then the men of Israel said to Gideon, rule over us, you and your son and your grandson also, for you have delivered us from the land of Midian. Gideon said to them, I will not rule over you, and my son will not rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. And Gideon said to them, let me make a request of you. Give me every man of you the earrings of his spoil. For they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. And they answered, we will willingly give them. And they spread a garment, and every man cast in it the earring of his spoil. And the weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, besides the crescents and the pendants and the purple garments worn by the kings of Midian, and besides the collars that were above the necks of the camels. And Gideon made an ephod of it and put it in his city in Ophrah. And all Israel played the harlot after it there, and it became a snare to Gideon and to his family. So Midian was subdued before the people of Israel, and they lifted up their heads no more. And the land had rest 40 years in the days of Gideon. Death of Gideon. Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house. Now Gideon had 70 sons, his own offspring, for he had many wives. And his concubine, who was in Shechem, also bore him a son, and he called his name Abimelech. And Gideon, the son of Joash, died in a good old age, and was buried in the tomb of Joash, his father, at Ophrah of the Abiezrites. As soon as Gideon died, the people of Israel turned again and played the harlot after the Baals, and made Baal-berith their god. And the people of Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who had rescued them from the hand of all their enemies on every side. And they did not show kindness to the family of Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, in return for all the good that he had done to Israel. Judges 9. Abimelech attempts to establish a monarchy. Now Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, went to Shechem to his mother's kinsmen, and said to them and to the whole clan of his mother's family, "See, in the years of all the citizens of Shechem, which is better for you, that all 70 of the sons of Jerubbaal rule over you, or that one rule over you. Remember also that I am your bone and your flesh." And his mother's kinsmen spoke all these words on his behalf in the ears of all the men of Shechem, and their hearts inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, "He is our brother." And they gave him 70 pieces of silver out of the house of Baal-berith, with which Abimelech hired worthless and reckless fellows who followed him. And he went to his father's house at Ophrah, and slew his brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal, 70 men upon one stone. But Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left, for he hid himself. And all the citizens of Shechem came together, and all Beth Millo, and they went and made Abimelech king by the oak of the pillar of Shechem. The parable of the trees. When it was told to Jotham, he went and stood on the top of Mount Gerizim and cried aloud and said to them, "Listen to me, you men of Shechem, that God may listen to you. The trees once went forth to anoint a king over them, and they said to the olive tree, 'Reign over us.' But the olive tree said to them, 'Shall I leave my fatness, by which gods and men are honored, and go to sway over the trees?' And the trees said to the fig tree, 'Come you and reign over us.' But the fig tree said to them, 'Shall I leave my sweetness and my good fruit, and go to sway over the trees?' And the trees said to the vine, 'Come you and reign over us.' But the vine said to them, 'Shall I leave my vine, which kills gods and men, and go to sway over the trees?' Then all the trees said to the bramble, 'Come you and reign over us.' And the bramble said to the trees, "If in good faith you are anointing me king over you, then come and take refuge in my shade. But if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon." Now therefore, if you acted in good faith and honor when you made Abimelech king, and if you have dealt well with Jerubbaal and his house, and have done to him as his deeds deserved, for my father fought for you and risked his life and rescued you from the hand of Midian, and you have risen up against my father's house this day, and have slain his sons 70 men on one stone, and have made Abimelech the son of his maidservant king over the citizens of Shechem, because he is your kinsman. If you then have acted in good faith and honor with Jerubbaal and with his house this day, then rejoice in Abimelech, and let him also rejoice in you. But if not, let fire come out from Abimelech and devour the citizens of Shechem and Beth Millo, and let fire come out from the citizens of Shechem and from Beth Millo and devour Abimelech. And Jotham ran away and fled, and went to Be, and dwelt there for fear of Abimelech his brother. The downfall of Abimelech. Abimelech ruled over Israel 3 years, and God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem, and the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech, that the violence done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal might come, and their blood be laid upon Abimelech their brother, who slew them, and upon the men of Shechem, who strengthened his hands to slay his brothers. And the men of Shechem put men in ambush against him on the mountain tops, and they robbed all who passed by them along the way, and it was told Abimelech. And Gal the son of Ebed moved into Shechem with his kinsmen, and the men of Shechem put confidence in him, and they went out into the field and gathered the grapes from the vineyards, and trod them, and held festival, and went into the house of their God, and ate and drank, and reviled Abimelech. And Gal the son of Ebed said, "Who is Abimelech, and who are we of Shechem that we should serve him? Did not the son of Jerubbaal and Zebul his officer serve the men of Hamor, the father of Shechem? Why then should we serve him? Would that this people be under my hand, then I would remove Abimelech. I would say to Abimelech, increase your army and come out." When Zebul, the ruler of the city, heard the words of Gal, the son of Ebed, his anger was kindled, and he sent a messenger to Abimelech at Arumah, saying, "Behold, Gal, the son of Ebed, and his kinsmen have come to Shechem, and they are stirring up the city against you. Now therefore go by night, you and the men that are with you, and lie in wait in the fields. Then in the morning, as soon as the sun is up, rise early and rush upon the city, and when he and the men that are with him come out against you, you may do to them as occasion offers." And Abimelech and all the men that were with him rose up by night and laid wait against Shechem in 4 companies. And Gal, the son of Ebed, went out and stood in the entrance of the gate of the city. And Abimelech and the men that were with him rose from the ambush. And when Gal saw the men, he said to Zebul, "Look, men are coming down from the mountain tops." And Zebul said to him, "You see the shadow of the mountains, as if they were men." Gal spoke again and said, "Look, men are coming down from the center of the land, and one company is coming from the direction of the diviner's oak." Then Zebul said to him, "Where is your mouth now? You who said, 'Who is Abimelech that we should serve him?' Are not these the men whom you despised? Go out now and fight with them." And Gal went out at the head of the men of Shechem and fought with Abimelech. And Abimelech chased him, and he fled before him, and many fell wounded up to the entrance of the gate. And Abimelech dwelt at Arumah, and Zebul drove out Gal and his kinsmen, so that they could not live in Shechem. On the following day, the men went out into the fields, and Abimelech was told. He took his men and divided them into 3 companies, and laid wait in the fields. And he looked and saw the men coming out of the city, and he rose against them and slew them. Abimelech and the company that was with him rushed forward and stood at the entrance of the gate of the city, while the 2 companies rushed upon all who were in the fields and slew them. And Abimelech fought against the city all that day. He took the city and killed the people that were in it, and he razed the city and sowed it with salt. When all the people of the tower of Shechem heard of it, they entered the stronghold of the house of El-Berimith. Abimelech was told that all the people of the tower of Shechem were gathered together, and Abimelech went up to Mount Zalmon, he and all the men that were with him. And Abimelech took an axe in his hand and cut down a bundle of brushwood, and took it up and laid it on his shoulder. And he said to the men that were with him, "What you have seen me do, make haste to do as I have done." So every one of the people cut down his bundle, and following Abimelech, put it against the stronghold. And they set the stronghold on fire over them, so that all the people of the tower of Shechem also died, about 1,000 men and women. Then Abimelech went to Thebes and encamped against Thebes and took it. But there was a strong tower within the city, and all the people of the city fled to it, all the men and women, and shut themselves in. And they went to the roof of the tower. And Abimelech came to the tower and fought against it, and drew near to the door of the tower to burn it with fire. And a certain woman threw an upper millstone upon Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. Then he called hastily to the young man, his armor-bearer, and said to him, "Draw your sword and kill me, lest men say of me, 'A woman killed him.'" And his young man thrust him through, and he died. And when the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they departed, every man to his home. Thus God requited the crime of Abimelech, which he committed against his father in killing his 70 brothers. And God also made all the wickedness of the men of Shechem fall back upon their heads, and upon them came the curse of Jotham, the son of Jerubbaal.